You one thing, a lot of good will come out of this. You will never seen any player in the entire country play as hard as I will play the rest of the season.
Tebow, stiff arms to the 5, touchdown!
Tim Tebow wasn't just a quarterback. He was a cultural firestorm, a lefty in a right-handed league, a fullback's body with a preacher's heart, and a college legend who rewrote the playbook, only to drive NFL scouts insane. Let's start with the irony. At Florida, he won 2 national titles, a Heisman, and broke Herschel Walker's SEC rushing touchdown record. But when he declared for the draft, experts called him unplayable. Why? His looping throwing motion took him half a second to release the ball, which was slower than every quarterback in his draft class. But the Broncos ignored the noise. In 2010, they stunned the league by taking him 25th overall. Critics laughed until 2011, when Tebow turned fourth quarters into magic shows. We're talking 6 game-winning drives, with 5 broken tackles per game, and a playoff win over Pittsburgh's #1 defense. But here's the kicker. He did it all with a 46% completion rate, which was the worst in the NFL. Tebow Mania wasn't about stats. It was about faith versus analytics, grit versus logic, and a quarterback who played like he was still at Florida. Love him or hate him, he forced America to ask, can heart beat talent? Let's dive into the chaos. Let's rewind to where it all began. Tebow's college career at Florida. This wasn't just dominance, it was a revolution. Urban Meyer built his entire offense around a 245-pound quarterback who ran like a fullback and threw like, well, a fullback trying to throw. But it worked. In 2007, Tebow became the first sophomore to win the Heisman, racking up 55 total touchdowns in 2 seasons, which is more than Peyton Manning had in his entire college career. The NFL draft was where the cracks started to show. Scouts tore apart his mechanics. That looping throwing motion added 0.2 of a second to his release, which may not seem like much, but is an eternity in the pros. One GM even said he'd be a 3rd rounder if his name wasn't Tebow. But Denver's front office saw what others missed. They drafted him 25th overall, higher than future stars like Rob Gronkowski, betting on his clutch gene and that viral Florida grit. And then came 2011. Tebow got his shot when he took over a 1-4 Broncos team, and suddenly, logic went out the window. His stats were ugly with a 46% completion percentage, but the wins kept coming. In a game against Miami, he would throw for 160 yards and rush for the game-winning touchdown. Critics called it luck. But here's the thing. Tebow's 4th quarter quarterback rating that season was 68.9 out of a possible 100, which bested Aaron Rodgers' 65.2 in the same period. The NFL hadn't seen a player like this since the 1970s. Denver ran a Frankenstein offense, part option, part playground ball, with Tebow averaging 21 carries a game and wins. Defenses were baffled. Steelers legend James Harrison admitted, "We didn't know whether to tackle him or say a prayer." But behind the chaos was a question. Could a quarterback built for the 70s survive in 2011? The answer was coming, and it would break the internet. Tebow Mania wasn't just a football story, it was a culture war. On one side, you had fans wearing Tebow 15 jerseys like a new religion, and on the other, you had coaches and scouts rolling their eyes at his college offense. And in the middle, ESPN's Skip Bayless. The debate was simple. Could a quarterback who completed just 46% of his passes actually be good? Let's break it down. In 2011, the Broncos ranked 31st in passing yards, but first in 4th quarter comebacks. Tebow's quarterback rating in the final 5 minutes, 72.1. Higher than even Tom Brady that year. Stats said no, results said yes. And nowhere was that clash clearer than in the infamous Bears game. Down 10-0 in the 4th quarter, Tebow did the unthinkable. He led 2 drives, a 39-yard field goal march, then a 58-yard TD drive capped by a 16-yard strike to Demaryius Thomas. On the first play of overtime, Tebow audibled to a QB draw, broke 2 tackles, and rumbled 51 yards, the longest OT run by a QB in NFL history, to set up the game-winning field goal. The Bears' defense had allowed just under 18 points per game that season, but against Tebow, they looked lost. Brian Urlacher admitted post-game, "We knew the play, we just couldn't stop it." Meanwhile, the media fed the fire. Skip Bayless called him the ultimate winner, while Merrill Hogue said he couldn't play QB in a 7-on-7 league. The Broncos' playbook became a meme. 60% run plays, 40% Hail Marys. But here's the kicker. Denver's red zone touchdown rate jumped 25% with Tebow. Why? Because in the clutch, 245 pounds of muscle plowing through linebackers was unstoppable. By December, even LeBron James was Tebowing. John Gruden called it a middle finger to analytics. But Bill Belichick, he had a plan, and it would end Tebow Mania for good. January 8th, 2012, the Broncos host the Steelers in the wild card round. Pittsburgh's defense, legendary. #1 in yards allowed, #1 in sacks. And Tebow, a 7-point underdog with a 46% completion rate. What happened next wasn't football, it was absolute folklore. On the first play of overtime, the Steelers sent a 6-man blitz. This had been their bread and butter all season. Tebow Tebow calmly reads it, audibles to a 4 verticals concept, and takes the snap. Demaryius Thomas beats all-pro corner Ike Taylor with a stutter step. Tebow, under pressure, launches a 31-yard bullet. Thomas catches it in stride, stiff arms Taylor to the ground, and races 49 yards for the walk-off TD. Tebow averaged an insane 15.8 yards per attempt, which is the highest ever in a playoff game. The Steelers hadn't allowed a 50-plus yard touchdown all season, and Tebow dropped 80 on them. But here's what the stats don't show. Pittsburgh was unprepared. They'd practiced all week for Denver's option run game. Instead, Tebow threw 21 passes, his most in a month. Dick LeBeau, Pittsburgh's Hall of Fame DC, admitted post-game, "We got caught in the wrong call. Simple as that." The aftermath? Pandemonium. Tebow time trended worldwide. John 3:16 spiked on Google. Tebow had thrown for 316 yards, averaged 31.6 yards per completion. Coincidence? Fans didn't care. For one night, the guy who couldn't throw out-dueled a dynasty and rewrote the script on what a QB could be. But the magic of that Steelers win died fast. 1 week later, Bill Belichick delivered a masterclass in humiliation. The Patriots held Tebow to just 9 completions and a whopping 5 sacks, exposing every flaw. New England played cover 1, daring him to throw deep, and he went 0 for 8 on passes over 15 yards. The final score, 45-10. Tebow's Cinderella story was over. Denver traded him to the Jets that offseason, and things got weird. Rex Ryan buried him behind Mark Sanchez and Greg McElroy, a guy who'd go 1 for 2 in starts in his NFL career. Tebow threw just 8 passes all season. 8. His most memorable Jet moment, a 9-yard checkdown in a blowout loss to Tennessee. But here's where it gets wild. Tebow did make a comeback in baseball. Signed by the Mets in 2016, he hit .226 in Double-A, which isn't bad for being his second pro sport. In 2019, he smacked a 428-foot homer off a 97-mile-per-hour fastball. Stats said he was better against elite velocity than 60% of minor leaguers. But let's be real, this was a sideshow. The NFL never gave him another shot. Why? Mechanics. In 2015, Eagles coaches timed his release at 0.56 seconds, slower than every starting quarterback today. John Gruden put it bluntly, "You can't survive in this league if your windup takes longer than a Disney ride." Tebow Mania faded, but the legacy? It's complicated. He forced the NFL to rethink intangibles, inspired Lamar Jackson's rise, and proved that even flukes can change the game, for better or worse. Tebow's NFL career crashed, but his legacy? It's bigger than football. Let's start with the Tebow Foundation, 31 hospitals built in the Philippines, serving 1.2 million patients. His Night to Shine proms host 200,000 special needs guests yearly. And get this, in 2020, his foundation funded 22,000 life-saving surgeries. That's MVP stuff, no stats needed. But Tebow's cultural footprint goes deeper. In 2011, he was the most Googled athlete on earth, topping Messi, LeBron, even Tom Brady. America still craves Tebow, even if the NFL doesn't. On the field, his shadow lingers. Lamar Jackson's MVP seasons, they owe a debt to Tebow's chaos. Since 2012, QB rushing yards have exploded, up 74% league-wide. Even the Eagles' tush-push play, it's basically Tebow's old goal line package with better PR. But here's the twist. Tebow's real impact was making us argue. Was he a winner, a fraud, a prophet? The numbers say both. Yet his mechanics were undeniably broken, a cautionary tale for stats nerds. So why do we care? Because Tebow Mania was never about football. It was about believing in the impossible. Tebow Mania left us with one burning question. Can heart outweigh talent? The stats say maybe not, but the legacy? Undeniable. That 316-yard playoff game, still the highest yards per attempt, 15.8 in postseason history, and his foundation's impact, 1.2 million lives changed. A big plus for his legacy. So here's the truth. Tebow wasn't a quarterback. He was a paradox. A lefty who couldn't throw, a fullback who refused to block, and a lightning rod who made us care more about belief than completion percentages. What's your take? Was he a trailblazer or a trivia answer? Drop it below. And if you learned something today, maybe that 0.56 second release time or his 22% SEC Nation ratings bump, smash subscribe. Because football's best stories aren't just stats. They're chaos. Thanks for watching. Stay passionate.